that time. So, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Pennington County Planning Commission meeting. Recommendations of the Planning Commission on certain items from this agenda will be considered by the Board of Commissioners at the regular meeting on June 4th, 2020 at 10:30 a.m. The Planning Commission utilizes speaker request forms, which are available in the Commission chambers during the meeting. So that would be these forms. They're on the back table there. If there's an item or an issue that you wish to speak on, and you are not the agent or the applicant, please fill one of those out and hand it in up here at the corner of the dais, and we'll take it and just helps me stay organized here during the meeting. With that, we'll go ahead and start with the roll call, and because we're using electronic communication, we'll do the single roll call with everything.
Rich.
Right?
Jim.
Here.
Lloyd.
Here.
Aye.
Kathy.
Did you hear me? Here?
Heard you. Travis.
Here.
Sunny.
Here.
Sandy.
Here.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the May 11th, 2020 minutes. Has everyone had a chance to review? And is there any changes, edits to the minutes prior to approval? Seeing none up here on the dais. Jim, do you have any changes?
No.
Kathy?
No.
Sunny?
No.
Thank you. With that, I would entertain a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye, but with a roll call vote.
Rich.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Lloyd.
Aye.
Kathy.
Aye.
Travis.
Aye.
Sunny. Sunny.
Aye.
Sandy.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of today's agenda. Today's consent agenda consists of items 3 through 9. We have two additional items, 10 and 11, rezoning and conditional use permit outside of the consent agenda, followed by our normal county board items. Is there any changes to the agenda today? Seeing none here on the dais, anybody remotely have any changes to the agenda?
None for me.
Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
So move.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion on the agenda. Roll call vote.
Rich.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Lloyd.
Aye.
Kathy.
Aye.
Travis.
Aye.
Sunny.
Aye.
Sandy.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Go ahead and start with the consent agenda.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jason Tennyson, County Planner. Following items have been placed on the consent agenda for action to be taken on all items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent agenda by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration. The findings of the Planning Commission are recommendations to the Pennington County Board of Commissioners, who will make the final decision. Agenda item number 3, conditional use permit review, CU 14-23 for Keystone Adventures Incorporated, Andrew Bussey's agent, to review a golf driving range and helipad in a highway service zoning district. Staff is recommending approval. Agenda item number 4, conditional use permit CU 1801, Ron Weifenbach, to review a seasonal retail sales Class C fireworks in a general commercial district. Staff is also recommending approval of that one. Agenda item number 5, conditional use permit CU 18-09, Scott and Christine Grierson, to review a recreational vehicle to be used as temporary living quarters on subject property while building a single-family residence in a limited agriculture district. Staff is recommending to continue the review of conditional use permit 1809 to the July 13th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting with 2 conditions. Agenda item number 6, conditional use permit CU 18-14, All American Sales. Doug Bellinger is the agent to review a seasonal retail sales to review seasonal retail sale of Class C fireworks in a heavy industrial district. Staff is recommending approval. Agenda item number 7, conditional use permit review CU 19-05, Fat Boys Incorporated. Bob Fuchs is the agent to review a campground on a subject property to include RV sites, tent, camping, cabins, and a motel in a limited agriculture district. Staff also recommends approval. Agenda item number 8, conditional use permit review CU 1910 for Jeff and Jody Segru to review a multifamily dwelling in a suburban residential district. Staff is recommending approval. And lastly, agenda item number 9, conditional use permit 19-11 for Paul and Rebecca Friedel to allow a guest house on the subject property in a low-density residential district, and staff also recommends approval.
Thank you. Are there any items that staff wishes to pull from the agenda?
No.
Are there any items that the membership wishes to pull from the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, item number 9, please.
Okay. Any other items from the agenda from the membership? Jim?
No.
Kathy?
No.
And Sunny?
No.
Okay, just so everyone knows, Sunny, I think he has an unstable internet connection, so we'll carry on as long as we can here. With that being said, for those in the audience, items 3 through 9 will be voted on with a single vote. Are there any of those items that you wish to have pulled from the agenda for separate consideration so it can be discussed further? Items 3 through 9. Seeing none, I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
I'd move to approve items 1 through 8.
Second.
Did you say 1 through
1,
something?
1 through 8, because she wanted 9 pulled.
Okay, so technically that's items 3 through 8 then, yeah? Okay.
Second.
So consent agenda items 3 through 8 with number 9 being pulled. Motion was our second?
Yes.
Okay. Further discussion? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Rich,
All right.
Jim,
Aye.
Lloyd,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Travis,
Aye.
Sunny, Sandy.
Aye.
Motion carries. Brings us to item number 9.
And these are just 2 quick questions. If you could just remind me or clarify for me the difference between a guest house and a vacation home rental?
Guest house has more stipulations on it, such as it can, the size limitation, it has to be 1,000 square feet or less, depending on the size of the single-family residence that's already there. So that's one of the stipulations. The other is that it needs to be tied into the same utilities as the parent single-family residence or the primary single-family residence that's on the property, and it can only be used for 180 days a year.
Oh, okay, well, that part confuses me. Why do the utilities have to be tied to the same primary resident?
Because it's considered an extension of the single-family residence.
But it can still be rented out to
No,
the
ma'am.
general public?
No, not at all.
Then who will be using it?
Guests of the people of the single-family residence, of the applicants. People who come to town to visit, I mean, it can't be rented out or anything like that, like a vacation home rental can be.
And so because it's a separate structure and not a 4th or 5th bedroom within the house, it has to be deemed a guest home?
Right, it's more or less considered an additional bedroom or, living quarters off of the primary residence.
Okay, but because it's not physically attached to the main residence is why we need a conditional use permit?
Correct.
Thank you.
Any further questions on item number 9? With that, staff recommends approval of the extension of conditional use permit 19-11 with 8 conditions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second for approval. Further discussion? Seeing no further discussion, roll call vote.
Rich,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lloyd,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Travis,
Aye.
Sunny, Sandy.
Aye.
Motion carries. Brings us to item 10.
Agenda item number 10, rezone 20-02 and comprehensive plan amendment 20-02 to rezone 6.3 acres from limited agricultural district to a suburban residential district and to change future land use from planned unit development sensitive to suburban residential district. The applicant is Dick Compass. He is in the audience if any of you have questions for him today. Surveyor is Renner Associates. Site location is east of Keystone along Highway 40. The Planning Commission has seen this before earlier this year when the applicant applied for layout plan 20-04 to combine lots in order to create Lot 1R of Chase Elkhorn subdivision. If approved, this will satisfy one of those conditions for that layout plan. As the property sits today, it's zoned limited agriculture district, which carries a 10-acre minimum lot size. It is 6.3 acres, so it's considered legal non-conforming. Access is off of Highway 40. It does have special flood hazard area. There are no structures on the subject property and no existing utilities. Current zoning within a half mile of the subject property is general agriculture, limited agriculture, low-density residential, suburban residential, and planned unit development districts. Future land use within that same half mile consists of public land, planned unit development sensitive, suburban residential, low-density residential, and planned unit development districts. The request was sent out for interdepartmental review, and we received no significant comments. There are several suburban residential district properties located within 1/2 mile of subject property, and future land use identifies suburban residential district zoning in the area. Therefore, the applicant's request to rezone appears to be in harmony with current and future land use zoning. Again, if approved, this rezone and comprehensive plan amendment will satisfy condition number 3 of layout plan LPL 20-04.
Thank you. Any questions on this item? Jim, Kathy, any questions? Sunny?
None for me.
Not for me.
Okay. With that, staff is recommending approval of rezone RZ 20-02 and comprehensive plan amendment CA 20-02. We can take those in one vote or two.
One.
One vote. So I would go ahead with roll call.
Rich,
Do you need a motion?
Did I not do a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
Sorry, everyone. Motion and second. Is there further discussion on the item? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Rich,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lloyd,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Travis,
Aye.
Sunny, Sandy.
Aye.
Motion carries. Brings us to item 11.
Good morning, Cody Sack, Environmental Planner. Item 11 is conditional use permit CU 20-08. It's to allow a contractor's equipment storage yard and a sawmill in the subject property in a limited agriculture district. The applicant is Shad Corp., Cody Shad. This was continued from the May 11th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting. It was continued to allow time for commissioners to conduct a site visit. Considerations for conditional use permit, there's those 5 factors. The effect and use of enjoyment on other property in the immediate vicinity for those uses already permitted. The use of the subject property for contractors' equipment storage yard could affect the enjoyment of other property in the immediate vicinity. The effect of normal and orderly development, allowing this conditional use permit could affect the normal orderly development or improvement of any structure or any surrounding property in the area. That utilities, access roads and drainage and other facilities are provided. The subject property has existing utilities. Access to the property is provided off Marvin Road. It appears that all necessary utilities and access roads are provided. That off-street parking and loading requirements are met. It appears that there's enough space for parking, and that measures are taken to control offensive odor, fumes, dust, noise, vibration, and lighting. The proposed conditional use by its very nature could produce odor, fumes, dust, noise, vibrations, or intrusive lighting. It was routed out. The city is not in favor of approving or of having a contractor's equipment storage yard and sawmill there. The conditional use permit does not appear to be in harmony with the existing land use in the immediate vicinity. I did receive an email from the applicant over the weekend. I think you guys have a copy of that requesting that it be denied without prejudice. Staff is still recommending denial of conditional use permit CU 20-08.
Thank you. Is there any questions for staff? Could you go through the difference between straight denial and denial without prejudice so everyone's on the same page?
So straight denial means that the applicant can't apply for this request again for a year. Denying without prejudice allows the applicant a year's time to address either staff's concerns or your concerns. If they address those and it meets what we or you guys required, he could come back within the year and apply for it under the same application.
Okay. So that makes sense to everyone.
And he still, Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
and he still has to make notifications if he does bring it back, though. That's important notice, right?
Yes, you would still have to send out requirements for a meeting date.
The notifications.
Yep, it's just under this application, whereas denial, he'd have to apply for a whole new, like fill out a whole new application and everything. But it still involves letters and signs and stuff.
Okay. Kathy, do you have any questions for staff on this item?
No, I don't really have any questions, but when it comes time, I did visit the site last Tuesday. And I just simply drove out there. I didn't speak with anyone. You have a little different perspective on it all since seeing the site. So when the time is right, I'll talk about that, but I don't have any questions.
Jim, do you have any questions for staff?
I'm curious about what kind of how much of a modification can he make if we find denial without prejudice? In other words, can he modify that application slightly and reapply in a short period of time without additional expense, or does he have to simply provide the same kind of terms and conditions of his application for this conditional use permit? Am I making myself clear? Because I'm not so sure I am.
Yeah, so if you guys elected to deny without prejudice, it would be, an example would be like you'd recommend deny without prejudice to allow the applicant time to do this, and this, like bring, you guys would set the requirements, and then if he met those in that recommendation, then he could come back in and apply for it. But it wouldn't be just deny without prejudice. There'd have to be some, like, to address road concerns or to address erosion, sediment, and dust, certain things. You guys would set those requirements, and then he'd have to meet it before he could actually apply again.
Okay. Thank you.
Sonny, do you have any questions?
No.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Sandy, then we'll come back to you.
Go ahead, Sandy.
Yeah, my concern is, it appears as if the city also is opposed to this. And so anything that we were to come up with that he would need to comply with, does that satisfy the city? Or will the city, because I'm trusting this is within the 3 mile district.
It is within the 3 mile. The thing with that is that it's still, even if the city says that they don't approve of it, it's your guys' responsibility to take that into consideration in your decision. Just because the city doesn't necessarily want it doesn't mean you guys can't approve it, because it is a county property. It still is in the county. it's against their future land use, so if they ever annex that in, it wouldn't be in harmony with them annexing, and if it's not in harmony with them annexing, they make that comment.
So if it were annexed, it would then fall into legal nonconforming?
For them, and they try to avoid that. That's why they make those comments, like in the 3 mile.
I see. Thank you.
Travis?
Let me make sure I understand you correctly, Cody. If we deny without prejudice, you're saying we have to put a stipulation on there that he has to do this, that, or the other? Because I know other times we've denied without prejudice that we didn't do that. So I just want to make sure I'm understanding you clearly.
I guess you wouldn't necessarily have to, but it'd be one of those things where if there wasn't any stipulation or anything put on it, and he fixed one thing that was talked about last week, he could come in and we could be under the same thing again. So it would be, I don't think it's something that you have to like list this, and this. It would just be, if you don't want to have to deal with this every 2 weeks of him fixing something and then it's not enough, and then he gets denied without prejudice again, and then he comes back in, and then he has to do it again, and eventually this is in front of you guys like 6 or 7 times. It would help that, but that'd be your guys's.
I'm not sure that would probably happen. I did a site visit. I spoke with all the neighbors. Many of them are here. And then I also talked to Cody Schott over the phone. And I think he understands kind of what's going on at this point in time. And I think that's kind of what he told me that he was thinking about doing that after we visited. He thought about talking to you guys about maybe I just shut it down for now and figure out what to do later. So I don't know if we need to put any specific criteria on it, because if he doesn't know what he's going to do or what he wants to do, then we're not going to fix anything by saying do this, and then he says, well, I still not going to do anything.
Correct. And this one's a little different because this one's more about the harmony and not fitting in with, it's a non-residential use, and it's
Right.
never going to not be a non-residential use. Usually denied without prejudice, like an example was a couple months ago, a person wanted some cabins, but they didn't have legal access. They had just a gentleman's agreement, and the person who they had a gentleman's agreement with didn't want it, want the access. He said he could still access it, but not for cabins. So we denied it without prejudice until he gained legal access through that property. But this is a little different because this is more of a use than like I need this type thing. It's, not a non-residential use that's not going to be a residential use 3 months from now.
Gotcha.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Lloyd.
So Cody, we're asking a lot of questions about this. I think it's probably a cost if we deny without prejudice, or just plain out deny, it's done. What happens to the money the applicant paid for the conditional use permit? That was for the services rendered?
Yeah, he could go in front of you guys. He'd have to request it back in front of the planning commission. He'd have to request his fees back.
And if denied without prejudice, this just means that's good for 1 year, right?
Correct. If it extends past that year, he'd have to come in with a whole new application.
Apply.
But say it was, I'll just use the example of the road. Say, one of your guys' concerns was the road and it not being, it's a residential road for non-residential use, and he goes in there and he improves it. He could come back in under that same application later and not have to pay any fees besides he'd have to pay for the property owner list again and the certified mails. He'd have to pay for that stuff again, but he wouldn't have to pay the whole new application fee. But if he did that and then it extended past a year from today, if today was the date that it was denied without prejudice, he'd have to do the whole application again, pay all those fees.
So that's kind of the point where I'm kind of going at, is that I don't think you can meet any conditions anybody has anyhow. I think it's just more of a cost savings, if possibility, if there's something could be worked out, then it's still available to do without having to redo the cost. That's what my thoughts is on deny without prejudice. It's not to get away with anything. I put conditions on it. It's a cost savings form of deal. If things work out, then you can, come back for it. If not, reapply. And either way, the conditional use costs you more money if you deny it and you have to come back and redo it a year from now, 2 years from now. That's my thoughts.
Okay. Further questions for staff? Okay, we do have some speaker request forms on this item. And I'm not sure if you folks still want to come up and speak after hearing what some of the recommendations will be, but first one would be Mark Wiley.
Good morning. My name is Mark Wiley. I live at 3901 Marvin Road.
If you could speak and grab just
I'm
one of the mics, yeah, it
Sorry.
just helps everyone
My name
else.
is Mark Wiley. I live at 3901 Marvin Road. I'm the first property on the right as you come in.
Okay.
Now, we've provided the photographs, we've provided the dust photographs, we've provided all that information. So, and I know it gets very convoluted trying to separate all this stuff out. And I know you guys are concerned about land rights, and so are we. But initially, when my brother-in-law, Russ Brown, called me one night and he said, Mark, there's somebody down here tearing around on a four-wheeler. And he asked if I would come down and help him check it out. And I said, sure. So I went down, and by the time I got there, he had stopped the gentleman, and it was Cody. And so visited with him a little bit, and he said, well, my two other brothers are going to buy this property. And at that point in time, I told him, I know I'm in construction, so I know the family name. And I told him, I said, this is not a commercial piece of property, and it is not a construction yard. You understand that, don't you? You've read the covenants? Well, yeah, yep. And then after, just prior to him signing the covenants, he called, and I talked to him. I said, did you read the covenants? Did you read them? Yes, I did. So after all that's said and done, and then we're involved in this process. And I'm going, my goodness gracious. Now I've told him 3 to 4 times about our restrictions on our covenants, that it wasn't commercial property, that he couldn't have a construction yard. And I'm banging my head trying to figure out why a guy would just continue to press and go ahead. And I think the point is that in the past, the county commissioners and the planning commission have kind of rubber stamped this stuff. So that's what he was hoping you would do, that you would go ahead and approve it, and away you'd go. So that's where I'm at. I just don't understand why a person would take that risk and buy that property, and knowing that nobody up there is in favor of this. So that's what I wanted to bring up, because he has been told numerous times about the restrictions on our covenants, and we're addressing that privately right now. So that's what I wanted to bring up. Also, I wanted to bring up, in 2003, you had a comprehensive land use plan that you guys wrote up. And on 6.0, future land use, it says right in here, to achieve attractive, stable, and safe residential areas, and to plan for a desirable and compatible mixture of residential densities. Now, that was in 2003. I mean, we're in 2020. I'm hoping, we should have improved upon this by now. That would be my hope. So that's basically all I have to say concerning this issue. Are there any questions?
Go ahead, Lloyd.
No, Mark, I really don't have any questions, and I guess I don't really agree with the rubber stamp comment, because
The what now?
the rubber stamp comment that,
Well,
quite frankly, until I went through the process myself, I went and I checked properties out, and if there's no restrictions, they say, yes, you can do whatever, and you have to still go get permits and so forth.
Sure.
And that's a risk for everybody, so
I
I
understand.
just,
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I didn't make that comment. Michelle did, the county lawyer.
well,
When she
you
got
made
up
it up here. So,
I did.
So
I was just,
I'm addressing that. And I just wanted to make the comment, I did come out yesterday about 4 o'clock and take a site visit, and I'm glad you were the first house to the right.
yes,
And I wanted to identify some of the areas, and I didn't call nobody or ask, for the simple fact that when I go out to a site to look, I don't want conversation with somebody trying to influence
sure,
my thoughts.
I understand.
And so, I took light of a lot of the stuff going on. I didn't feel the road was as bad as was made out to be. I see some stormwater runoff under the road towards the end where some of the damage was, where his gate is. I could see that area. But and I'm the one that initiated the continuation to have the site visit, so I appreciate all the guys giving me that time to come out and take a look. So I agree with the recommendations of the staff. I'm just trying to look at the cost. I told Cody from the beginning, I don't know what kind of, how big his business is or anything. So,
Neither do I.
and until that mining permit and the ground gets done up to where it's done and over with and you know what you're working with, I think that's when he needs to talk with the residents. You guys need to come together. So often what's happening with this, we've got us against them and then there's no in between. And I think Cody came to us with, and to you with this conditional use permit because he's got equipment on, he wants to be straightforward. Okay, that's why you come to Ford, because I drove by one, whose property is it that has the big shop and camper and vehicle on a trailer and some other stuff? That's what I was talking about last week, 2 weeks ago, saying, people like have that kind of square footage or property so you can do some stuff like that. And I
When
seen a tractor and some other stuff. So,
initially he told us he was putting up a pole barn to store his toys in. That's initially what he
Yeah.
told us. So, and to rephrase the rubber stamp comment, let me rephrase it and say, you have allowed in the past, okay? If that would be better.
yeah, there's exceptions. That's what boards are for. Because residents can't get along with one, and that's something to keep in mind, throughout all this process to the residents and not only to the applicant that, if you guys can't work it out before you come here, not everybody's going to be happy with the decision the boards make.
Understand.
There's no winners
Right.
either way.
But well, I guess what I'm trying to get across is initially from the get-go, there should be some understanding on a person that's going to buy the property, what that property can sustain, what people around it would approve. I mean, I would have spent a lot of time researching that before I went ahead and did this. So that's all I've got to say. Is there any other questions?
Any other questions for Mr. Wiley? Kathy?
No.
Jim?
No.
Sonny?
No.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
The next speaker request form we have is from Robert Watts.
I'm Robert Watts, 3850 Marvin Road. I have lot 2R, which is immediately adjacent to 3R, shown on the screen up there on the bottom side where the kink is in the middle. Falls down the road about where the Y is, over to the west and back north. I'm basically opposed to these conditional use permits for the simple reason is that it's beyond the scope of our zoning. It's not what we were told the use of the land would be when Mr. Shad came on, and he told me he was just going to put up a pole barn over adjacent to Russ Brown, and there would be nothing on my skyline. Well, there's a lot on my skyline right now, construction, wreckage, and equipment. This needs to be resolved. Forthrightness from original intent would have been appreciated. It hasn't been evident. I think that's all I need to say.
Okay.
Is there any questions that I can answer?
Any questions for Mr. Watts? Kathy, do you have any questions for Mr. Watts?
No, thank you.
Jim?
No.
Sonny?
No.
Thank you, sir. Kathy, did you want to circle back? Do I remember you saying that you wanted to discuss some other items on this later on?
Well, thank you, Rich. And, I did, as I said, visited last Tuesday and I just drove up and looked around and didn't leave the road, didn't go on the property. But I do think there's a couple, anyway, there were four things really that struck me when I was there. One of them driving in, and I saw it as I was leaving out, the first segment, the property right to the west, the first segment of Marvin Road, there's actually a sign that says Home of Future Mining. So this is right before the Marvin subdivision, but this area is different than I thought, because one is there's mining and industrial operations all around it, all sides, and you can see them. It's not hard to see them. It's not quiet. Interstate 90 is barreling through there, and there's road noise constant. It's and so it's not this secluded, quiet, residential area at all. It's got evidence of, as I said, mining and other operations, the road, the big interstate. But then the other thing is that the way the topography is, that the lot 3, which where the application is it's really very edge of it. If you look at it, if you're looking down, is kind of the high point, and then it goes way down. So where the house and the barn or the shed is really aren't even visible from these landowners. It is a steep drop down, kind of a gully kind of thing. And so a lot could happen down there, completely out of the visibility of the neighbors. And in terms of that little ridge up there, the skyline that the neighbor referred to, I mean, that's where the mining is going on, because the ridge, it's where the gypsum is, because the ridge is formed by the gypsum, which is a temporary deal. And but so, I mean, all things considered, I think that the perception that this is a secluded, quiet residential neighborhood really isn't accurate. And there's a lot going on around there, and there's going to be mining at the beginning of Marvin Road at some point in time, which is not going to require a conditional use permit because of the zoning on that property. So the neighbors are going to be driving through, and they're going to be dealing with dust and all of the above at some point, at least from what the sign says. I do think that if there's significant more traffic of any sort, that road's going to require some improvement. And my recollection is that Mr. Shad said that he would do that. There's the pipeline to deal with. Of course, that has to be done correctly. But there's lots of roads across lots of pipelines in this area, in this country, that obviously know how to deal with it. So that needs to be taken care of properly. But I don't think that it prevents the road from being constructed to current standards. And it just needs to be done in the right way. So I certainly can support denial without prejudice, but I think that this needs to be looked at a little bit in a little larger scale than what is being discussed right now. So thank you, Rich.
Thank you. Any further comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Jim.
I sort of agree with Kathy in regard to some of this, but the reality that there is mining there is because of the unique configuration of the geology, because there's obviously rock there. The applicant doesn't want to do any mining, evidently. He wants to put in some kind of a sawmill. Perhaps the time will come when there is such a profound shortage of available rock that can easily be extracted that this particular area would be open to mining. But under the circumstances, it just seems odd to me that we should get the conditional use permit for this purpose that Mr. Shad has suggested. I just think it's unnecessary. And I would agree with Kathy that these folks have chosen to create a residential area near an interstate, near a mining area, but they have been there for 20 some years, and they've made that choice. And I don't think that we ought to lightly change its nature. Now, as I say, if there was some vital rare earth metal that was going to need to be mined, and this was one of the few places in which it could be obtained, then our circumstances might be different, but for the moment, I think that it's appropriate to leave the zoning as it is, and um, um, perhaps Mr. Shad can use that property in a more appropriate way for the current zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Sonny, do you have any comments?
No, thanks.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
go ahead, Travis.
Cody, I got a question for you. A couple of questions. So just so everyone knows, I just want to make sure that I'm correct in my remembering of this. When does that mining permit end? Because that's separate from this particular conditional use permit that's being applied for.
It'll be the first meeting in September, but it'll be reviewed in August as like a update we usually do if something's gonna end. We usually do an update a month before to give the applicant some.
So sometime in that month, we'll get to review that particular permit for the mining aspects of this property.
Correct, yep.
Okay. We haven't told him he can't do any of the mining that's out there for that current mining, for that current project that he stated that he had going on. Is that correct? We haven't stopped him at all?
No.
Okay. And then finally, for this particular conditional use permit, bringing in the sawmill and the contractor storage yard, I have to say, I kind of agree that it's not appropriate for the area. After the last meeting, I think Michelle gave us a history of the area and the intent of that area. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe somebody else gave it to me, but that the whole area, is kind of developed as residential, and obviously the individuals here have that HOA that kind of says that, not that the HOA from our standpoint matters, but it's obviously residential. The road is probably one of my biggest concerns as well when I went out there for what's going on, and it's definitely going to get destroyed or damaged, I think, over time with that. The other thing that kind of interested me was the track out. And I talked to Cody Schott about it, and he agreed he should have been on his property, but that track out, and anybody here can tell me differently, who knows about those track in and track outs, that track out rock that he laid down is all on the outside of his property, and it's not on the inside. And if I understood those correctly, it should be on the inside, because you're trying to knock all the dirt and the mud and stuff off before you hit the road. And so we talked about that as well. And then some of that road erosion that has happened as well. So I'm either way, denial without prejudice or deny at this point in time, because I think some of these things do need to be addressed.
Thank you. Further questions? Seeing none, is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak on this item further? Sir, go ahead and come up. And when you get to the podium, please state your name for the record.
Name's Tom Cantrell. I live at 3910 Marvin Road. I didn't fill out a speaker request form because I feel like everything's been said that needs to be said. We've been here over and over and over again, but then the lady at home got my attention with the comment about there's mining all around us. Well, that's true. When I bought my property, I knew Pete Lean was next door. They're my neighbor, all right? So I knew that someday they could dig up next to me, right up to my property line. I accept that. What I also knew is that the property at the end of the road was not supposed to be mined. It's supposed to be residential. So there's a big difference there, buying a piece of property knowing that there's a future mining site next door and having a piece of property on the other side of you that's not supposed to be that way. That's the contention we have. Not that Pete Lean is going to mine over there someday. If they do, they do. It's like having Walmart moving next door to you. If you know the property next door to you is zoned commercial, don't complain about it afterwards. I won't complain about Pete Lean if they come over and mine that. But I will complain about Cody doing what he wants to do down there. So I wanted to clarify that point because I didn't feel it was valid for that comment.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
So just perspective of people reviewing the site. So I understand.
But I wanted to get my perspective on that.
Okay. Are there any questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Go ahead, come up. State your name again for the record.
I'm Jessica Smith. I live at 3855 Marvin Road. She says that the road is not that bad, but I do have some pictures.
Has the road recently been worked on?
No, It has not been recently worked on. After meeting on Monday is when he dropped the rock. I do have pictures of that. He dropped it outside of the fence and had workers up there working. I do have those pictures if you would like them. And then the road conditions, when it rains, I would like to show you, because when it's dry, it's not that bad. So can I pass these over to you?
Yeah, Cody, why don't you grab them and then hand them?
And with him working on the road after the meeting. I also have a form, a letter that I had typed up from Justin Carlisle, Keith Carlisle's son. He is the new broker with the real estate group. He's in charge, doesn't need a broker. I give him all the information and I asked him to look over it. He wrote this up, if you guys would like to read this, of his thoughts.
What is it?
It is his take on being a realtor on what's happening on this land. And he got with his dad and everything else and talked about it also. So this is Justin Carlisle's take and how he feels about this conditional use permit.
I don't need to read it, but I don't want to prevent others from, with regard to this specific issue, I don't believe it's going to affect where I'm at. Anybody, Kathy, do you guys need to hear what this letter says?
No.
Jim?
No, I don't.
Sonny?
No, thanks.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman.
go ahead.
Just for future reference, if you have something like that, you turn it in minimum 24 hours.
Okay, I
Before the meeting,
apologize. I
yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah, because that gives the public chance to read it and the commissioners and so forth.
Okay,
We just
I'm
want to
sorry.
make sure it's, all the information is distributed to everyone at the same time, so it's evenly perceived and reviewed.
Okay,
Okay? Anything else?
no, thank you.
Any questions for Mrs. Smith?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Lloyd.
So Jessica, these pictures, when I drove up there yesterday, it was dry.
Yep.
And so I thought the road was in good shape. And anytime anything, water gets on it, I could see where it's not raised up high enough. And with base course, that's going to happen. And for most of those pictures that look like the grooves, that must have been up there past that gate, coming down a little bit further probably when they're first coming up.
Yes, it's right after the post when you go down.
Okay. And which house is yours?
I'm right next to Kathy and Russell Brown. I'm in the middle.
That doesn't help.
So it would be, you see,
When I come up the hill, I think Mark
this one
said
right
he's
there.
the first one on the right,
That's right. She's putting up.
The second one on the right.
and you're the second one on the right.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're.
Yes, I'm right
and
behind
who are the
Kathy.
property owners closest to Chad's property? I know there's
That
one
would be-
there.
Kathy and Russell are right after me, and then it goes to Cody Shad's land.
And I believe Mr. Watts is the
He's,
other adjacent.
And that's the one up on the hill with the tractor.
I think he's on the left.
he's right
adjacent.
there. Right there. And then you have Tom and Mark and then Jerry. So that's us right there.
Yeah.
And then Kathy and Russ.
Kathy, okay, and then
And
who's
then
that?
Watts.
Watts, okay.
And then Tom. And then Mark is right over here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions? Thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience? I want to make sure everyone has an opportunity. Okay. Seeing none, there's been two things discussed. One, the recommendation from staff is for denial of the conditional use permit 20-08. There's also been discussion of denial without prejudice. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Go ahead.
I see the applicants in the audience.
I don't think so.
No.
I think that's Mr.
Oh.
I think, yeah, I think your item was on the consent agenda.
I didn't have my glasses on. You look the same. Sorry.
Is there a motion?
I think I go with staff's recommendation. Staff is recommending denial of conditional use permit CU 2008.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion on the item?
Was that with or without prejudice, or there was nothing on prejudice?
Nothing on prejudice. It's basically as written in the binder.
Thank you.
Further discussion?
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Lloyd.
I struggle on without prejudice just for the simple fact that, as an applicant, I don't personally think it's going to come back, but it's an opportunity for I see it as an opportunity for the residents and other property owners to try and get together to find an agreement. I think there's a lot of work that needs to be done between the two of them, and I think they can do that. But we've got to get away from the who's right and who's wrong and just find some middle ground is where my feeling is on. I think that the residents have legitimate concerns. You do, you really do. And I highly encourage you guys to try to find some more middle ground, whether somewhere's along the line. I don't agree with a commercial parking spot for the vehicles or sawmill, but I do believe what you and some of you residents enjoy out there, that other property should be able to enjoy the same. And those are my 2 cents, I guess.
Okay. Further discussion on the item? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Rich,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lloyd,
Aye.
Kathy,
No.
Travis,
Aye.
Sunny,
Aye.
Sandy.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, everyone. Item 12.
Morning, Commissioners. Jason Tennyson again. Agenda item number 12 is a county board report. The Board of Commissioners concurred with the Planning Commission's recommendations from the May 11th, 2020 Planning Commission meeting.
Items from the public. Sir, do you have anything else to? Okay. Seeing no items from the public, brings us to item 14, items from staff.
No items from staff.
No items from staff.
Oh, sorry. We do have I did have one thing. I apologize for that.
Go ahead.
We do have the capability to accept credit cards now.
Oh,
I just want to let you know we move forward with that.
so has that streamlined things on your side, or?
Yes, I think it definitely brings us a little more current with technology, and it makes it a little easier, allows more flexibility for the applicants at the time when they submit their
I
application.
missed what you said.
We have the capability to accept credit cards now in the Planning and Zoning Office.
Oh, okay, good.
Right. No longer just cash or check.
Okay. Was there anything significant in the building report? We didn't see anything on that here today.
Not that I'm aware of. I can follow up with you if you'd like to.
Okay. No, I think that we can catch whatever the updates are for the building permits, et cetera, can be done at the next meeting. Items from staff. Done? No more? Okay. Items from the membership? Anything from anyone in here?
Rich?
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to make the comment that I appreciate, as a commissioner coming in, we rotate these commission meetings, but this is my last one for another 5 months, but I really appreciate the work that you guys do. I really get some good insight from your guys' thoroughness. In fact, from what happened today with this last item and with the comments that were made. I really appreciate your guys' insights, and it helps me do what I do.
You're welcome. Thank you for the comments.
And Kathy and Jim, zooming in, your comments are well taken, and I respect those.
Thank you.
Kathy, Jim, Sunny, do you guys have anything from the membership?
I don't have anything.
Jim, shaking his
I
head.
do
no.
not.
Sunny?
No.
Okay, with that brings us to item 16, adjournment. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Seeing and hearing none, all those in favor, roll call vote.
Rich,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Lloyd,
Aye.
Kathy,
Aye.
Travis,
Aye.
Sunny,
Aye.
Sandy.
Aye.
Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.